Hello, JEDI Writing PIE. Dan Curtis-Cummins here, and I am here to add to the module on contract grading, give you a little snapshot of what the contract grading looks like in my class. So my model is based on Asao Inoue's theory of anti-racist writing assessment ecology, including his version of a labor-based contract grading model. And so I took his model and adapted it. And so we really emphasize, I think that Jolie and Professor Jen Schwartz, who follows me here, will emphasize that contract grading is not just one thing. You adapt it to fit your teaching style, to fit your pedagogy, to fit your curriculum. It is interconnected with every other part of your class and your values and relationships that you create. So I'm going to show you my version. So what my grading contract looks like is completely embedded within the syllabus, which I set up as a letter to students. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. So this is what students see, and it's really interconnected with the way that I frame and introduce my class more generally. The key features that I'll highlight through this quick video are the weekly labor journals, the renegotiation of contract terms that my students do in small groups twice per semester, and the final self-assessment process, which is an in-person second interview, second conference of the semester, where I have a chance to dialogue with them about their labor and about their grade. And all of this boils down to reframing the power dynamics in the classroom. And often in my class, with the themes and concepts around language and language diversity and language difference, we get to connect that to really anti-racist frameworks of the entire class. So to give you a quick idea, just take you through my syllabus. Pretty typical syllabus features, how you'll be learning, some of the active learning principles. And then I get into some rhetorical questions that, if they're following along from the active learning section, feed into this idea of negotiating their grade. And then talk about some rationale. This is a lot of the background information and thinking about a little bit more of the theory. I might revise this to get directly more into the actual contract, so to be a little bit more direct with students. But this is what the pre-negotiated contract looks like. And this is really based on Asao Inoue's grid that he starts with, and it's based on labor completed. Okay, so you have absences or any ways that you gauge participation, including with online learning. If you're heeding the OTL's calls to have a plan B, if you maybe change that to asynchronous or synchronous engagement or participation. There's a section usually for partial complete learning activities. The ways that you negotiate the standards with your class and in small groups for each assignment really is based on a certain level of effort and good faith effort to complete the assignment. And so if it doesn't meet that good faith effort or whatever you set up with your class, then you mark it partial complete. And then there's late within a certain time frame. There's ignored, which you can change. I actually invited my students to change that term, and we changed it to not yet completed by the end of the semester. So that was after we renegotiated the contract. And then I have a section just to be very clear about the major projects completed. We have 4 to 5 major projects, including group projects, over the course of the semester. So that gives students a snapshot of the main signposts throughout the semester that we're working towards. And if we go over the terms in class, and then with each class, what you'll see in the renegotiated contract is a section to really define and flesh out some of these terms, like what does participation mean? And I let students really input their definitions there. And then we discuss those and flesh them out. Okay. And so you get to define the terms and then renegotiate the terms with your class. I expect this would look different for every class and every teacher, every discipline, depending on the type of labor for your classes. In practice, throughout the semester, every week, part of the labor contract and part of the way that it's integrated into every part of the class is through the labor journal. I'm showing you now a colleague of mine, Professor Karina Gallo from the Criminal Justice Department, Criminal Justice Studies Department, her labor log or her class participation self-evaluation is how she puts it. In my class, I would call this a labor log, and I'm planning to adapt it. I thank Professor Gallo for sharing this through the OTL. And what you can see this does is keep students accountable and really set the expectations really clearly. And I know that Professor Gallo, and I know that I would myself, negotiate these expectations with your students so that they have some investment in how they're self-evaluating, as well as the expectations are very clear. So what we see here, the number of times you log in, the careful review of instructions, announcements, and other forums, completed notes on the required materials, and I really like that she points out multimodal materials here and encourages them to be really conscious of what materials they're engaging with. Using those materials in their posts and in their own writing, completing all, some, or none of the activities, and then I love this last question, my contributions improve the learning experience of others. So creating a sense of this community of learners that we all contribute to. And so these are some of the ways that through the weekly practice, you can see the contract itself and the whole framework really transforms the entire curriculum and transforms the entire class. Okay. My own is a very similar version of that, where I just have a discussion forum every week. That's how I did it last semester. And similar questions, more qualitative, of what were your major takeaways? What's an interesting concept or reading strategy? And I have, how do you feel about your labor? Adding in that affective element. How is remote learning going for you? Giving them a chance to really reflect and troubleshoot in what's working and well for them, and how they can go get help and resources to improve their experience. What's a way that you connected to campus? Did you interact with Betsy, which is our peer mentor in my class I was lucky enough to have? Is there any ways that you think, are there any ways that you think campus can connect to you? And then we always have a fun one that's connected to the class discussion that day. Okay. The second major thing that I do every semester to give you a sense of what this looks like in practice is the renegotiating those contract terms. So you can see here, this is an example from one class where I actually invited them to rename the whole contract. They named it Dan Super G Agreement. I liked that one. And so in small groups, they proposed changing these numbers around with a reason why. They also, in groups, added participation guidelines. So what should participation look like in this class? And you can see that in the groups, they were able to brainstorm things like asking questions, being active, ask questions to clarify, step up, step back, and then we get to discuss those and flesh them out. And then at the end of the semester, our second individual conference, our second individual face-to-face discussion of their labor and their writing, as well as their where they stand in the class, is this final conference where I use the renegotiated contract to set up this little tally form for them to account for their labor holistically over the semester. And this is the one time that we talk about a letter grade. And it's associated with a holistic tally, let's say, of their labor for the semester. There are different ways to set this up in a contract grading class. You can do it by percentage of labor completed, different ways that I've seen my colleagues do it, but this is based on Inouye's model. And then there's also, you have to think about a self-assessment in terms of what they learned, and that is incorporated into the portfolio reflection, the semester reflection, where it's more like a holistic labor journal. It's a holistic reflection on their growth through their revisions and the labor that is writing, which is getting feedback and grappling with it and making changes to your writing to see yourself grow as a writer. Okay. And those are the key points that really maybe give you an idea of what this contract grading system looks like in my class and how it really creates the whole curriculum and is interconnected with different elements of the class, like the weekly labor journals, like what we do daily and weekly in the classroom. So we will have some excerpts from this video and Asao Inoue's other videos as well. And we encourage you to explore and also check out the slides here for more of some rationale for the anti-racist foundations of this contract grading model. And we'll have some additional resources at the bottom of the module here, as well as within these slides, which you can find in those additional resources. Please reach out for any reason. Thank you very much. Cheers.